Hello and welcome to today's episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. And I've got a great guest on the show with me today. Josh has the day off. So welcome Boyd Pelley to EST.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here.
I should say welcome back because we've had you on this show before.
Too. Cow.
Boyd is the co-founder of Church Teams, which is the sponsor of the show. And we're very honored to have Boyd with us today. And let me tell you, there is nothing more established church than what's going on in my church right now. I don't know if you can hear that. I have the noise cancel. Okay, good, because I have the noise cancellation on. There is Gareth is practicing the organ for Easter Sunday. We're recording this right before Easter Sunday, and there is a wondrous organ that is playing in the background while I'm recording this. And Garrett's a great person and a great organist. He plays at our classic service, which is our 8 a.m. service. So if you're an audiophile and you have like super duper headphones on and you're going, every time Sam talks, there's something heavenly behind him, it's Gareth, and he's playing the organ. So anyway, want to get to our sponsor, and Boyd's on the show. So I need to make sure that I do this copy correctly, right? Because you're definitely going to know if I do it wrong. We love Church Teams. You've been listening to Church Teams. If you've been listening to EST for a while, then you know that they sponsor the show, and I love what they do because they can help the vast majority of churches, no matter what size, large or small. They have a software system that is really an umbrella for all sorts of applications, whether it's membership, check-in, email, texting, online giving, scheduling, groups, process management, giving. Church Teams can do it all. And they do it with best-in-class features. It's a value without compromise. I love that language right there because it's true. Their pricing starts at $37 a month for churches under 200 people. You can add text to church for $10, online giving for an extra $20. It's a great deal, but not only is it a great deal, it's great software. And Boyd could even tell us all about it because he's the co-founder of Church Teams. Boyd, when did you start Church Teams again? It's like,
we started like 2000.
Okay.
Year 2000, 23 years ago. It was a side gig for 8 years. So, yeah.
And did you have a role in Y2K at all?
Yeah, that was my fault. Yeah, all the things around that. I had nothing to do with that. I was
Was Church Teams birthed out of the Y2K crisis?
No, actually it wasn't. We weren't too worried about it because we mostly grew right after that was over. We really started that fall after Y2K, actually. So
what's wild is some of our listeners, I know they're younger, they're going, Y2K. I remember something about that. Everyone thought the world was going to end.
They did. The computers were going to shut down everything, right?
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a very big deal. Anyway, go to est.church. We've got an offer for you there. Boyd's really doing everybody well. They've got a free offer, 2 months free. They'll do a little mini consult for you. Just fill out the form. There's a landing page, est.church takes you there. Would love for you to give what they have to offer a test drive. It's really, really good. All right, Boyd, let's jump into this. I love this topic, and I'll give Boyd credit. He came up with the topic, closing the technology gap with your older members. Why? Why would we even attempt to do this?
Well, first of all, it's a little bit of a problem, right? And one of the things I love about EST churches is you care about older church members. Some churches that are brand new or just starting or whatever, they're so youth focused that there's not a great spot for older members. They just can go and they feel like, oh, this isn't for me, right? But EST churches, that is not the case. They're established churches. They love the older generational. But the reason why is because you do value multi-generational diversity. And I like that language of multi-generational diversity, because there is such an emphasis in church growth and different things like that around our youth culture. Our whole culture's built around that. And so churches that give attention to empty nesters and older, most of the time churches, rightly so, focus their attention on children's ministry, youth ministry, and their parents. And typically that leaves a little hole of 20-year-olds, which sometimes churches struggle to handle, and then the older empty nesters. And so we have to value that. Paul talks about it with Titus in Titus 2 when he starts. You remember he tells Titus, listen, here's what you got to teach each of these different ages. Teach younger men, teach older men, teach younger women, teach older women. So from the very beginning, there was sort of this built-in concept of multi-generational ministry there. I have a really cool quote from Howard Hendricks on this.
Well, now you have to share it.
I share it? All right, let me do this.
Yes, please.
Howard Hendricks, old age is as important and meaningful a part of God's perfect will as youth. He is interested in both the waxing and waning of life. Just as potential is locked up in young people and often never developed, so the full possibilities of old age often remain dormant and die with the person. The work of God will be greatly enriched when more attention is given to releasing and utilizing this hidden resource. Older people represent the greatest potential resource and labor pool within our churches, though they're consistently ignored. I thought, wow, that's really interesting that he sees that, and tying it into the value for the potential of young people and the possibilities of older folks. So I think that's where it's got to start.
Yeah, that's a good quote. And I lived this recently. We have multi-generational diversity at West Bradenton. We're growing with a lot of young families, but the good thing about that is our older people love it. Like they're all for it. They just don't want to be forgotten. They just want to be a part of it. So anyway, this elderly couple joined, and I don't have permission to share this story, so I've got to make sure I don't share too many details. And the wife, who was widowed and then recently remarried to this other gentleman, who I think he was also a widower, and start hearing their story. And so they're in their 80s, and they are not as mobile as they used to be. And you can tell that frustrates them and things like that. But then I sat down with them and I just said, tell me your story. And I started hearing all of the things that they had done in their lives. And I mean, the wife especially was an adventurer. Like she, you think of like going into the middle of nowhere, without any resources and just surviving. I mean, it was fascinating to hear the things that, as they would say, that we used to do. And again, I don't want to share too many details there, but I'm just in awe of all the things that they've experienced, all the things that they've done, including some of the heartache that they had in their life. And it was actually very encouraging because, I'm looking at them and this is, I guess this is just a common problem in our society. I'm looking at them as an elderly couple, and we need to care for them, and they would laugh at that. They would say, we've hiked through the deepest of jungles and we've snow skied the highest of mountains. Thank you for wanting to get the door for me with my walker, but I can handle it myself. Thank you very much. And just kind, gentle, wonderful people. And I think sometimes we look at our elderly people through a lens that we shouldn't. And there is a lot of life experience there. There are a lot of stories, and goodness, if their knees weren't just in such bad shape, they would still be on those snow skis, right?
Right.
And they feel that. And so these are people that have had pretty amazing lives, and they are in the twilight of their years. You should sit down and hear their stories. So I think part of closing the technology gap is, I think step number one is just, like you said, multi-generational diversity. Just get to know them.
Yes.
Just get to, they may actually teach you something.
Sam, that's exactly right. And you know what else? Just by listening, you're closing the gap because now they feel valued. They feel they feel like you really care, and they're going to be more open to learn new things when you've established that trust in that relationship to love on them. They have a lot to offer, but when it comes to the digital part, now they're going to be teachable.
Yeah, I think so. And you've mentioned at least, before the show, you talked about digital natives versus digital immigrants. Walk me through that terminology. That may be new terminology for some of our listeners. What do you mean by a digital native or a digital immigrant?
So a digital native is just that, somebody who basically grew up speaking the language of the digital culture. They just assumed life through a digital culture. Some of us have lived in it for so long that we're virtual. I'm not quite a digital, well, I'm a long ways from being a digital native, but I've built technology for 20 years. Okay. So I get a little by for most people my age and certainly older than that. But most people that aren't in, the millennial and younger generations are going to be digital immigrants. Means they grew up through all of the technology thing. They've seen it, but this isn't their natural language. And I've heard and read that language at different places about different digital natives and different digital immigrant things. And it made me think, does the Bible have anything to say about how we treat immigrants?
It's a good point.
It does. Yeah. And so I think as you think about this idea of closing the digital technology gap with older folks, some of it for generations that are digital natives and people that are digital natives, some of the motivation scripturally comes from that same heart of reaching out to immigrants. Now, I don't know if you've done much ministry. I haven't done a lot. I've done a little bit with immigrants, somebody that's new to our culture. We need to help them with just basics. We had an Indian student come to go to college not too far from us. And so we were paired up with him within a few weeks of him coming here. He spoke the language, but in terms of the food and the culture and in being in somebody's home to see how we celebrate different things, that was a new experience that we had reached out. We just brought him in to be one of our family. He's like our third son, actually. And, it's folks like that we've got to have a heart for. I think that's the essence of being a believer, is that we're going to care for people and we're going to love people like that.
I think this is a great way to look at the older generation. This is one lens. This is not the only lens, of course.
For sure.
If you've ever been in a setting where you did not know the language, so you traveled to a different culture, you traveled to a different country, or you just traveled through Miami, for instance, and you don't know Spanish. I know just enough to get by in terms of Spanish. But it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. You know your stuff. You've lived your life. You have confidence in your abilities, and yet because of the language barrier, you feel like you're at the lowest level. You're at the back of the pack. Well, guess what? Your older generation kind of feels that way, at least some of them. I won't say all of them. Some of them, at least, if not a lot of them in your church, feel that way about the progression of technology. They know their stuff. They're smart. They've had great life experience. They just don't know that digital language. Something as simple and basic as using QR codes, which we do. So we don't let this hold us back. Now, hear me very clearly. Right. You still need to adopt new technology, and that's something that Church Teams has done very, very well. For sure. Is understanding how to take the latest, greatest technology and apply it to a church setting. So I'm not saying be a Luddite or Luddite, where you want to dismantle all of the technology because it's bad. No, technology is a tool, and it's a very good thing. But a lot of your older people are going to feel like they just don't know the language. So we've been very intentional to try to use language that they will understand, to try to use tools in ways that they can grasp. And, we started using QR codes, and a lot of our older folks said, hey, we're okay with this. We just don't know how to use it. And it was like, it's a camera. It's camera based. Oh, you pull your smartphone up, you put your camera on it, and then there's a clickable link. Like they didn't know to do that. And it's like, oh, now that I know how to do it, I know where my camera is on my phone. I just didn't know that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it is. And now they know how to do it. So it was just an extra step of explaining, here's how you do it. And they're smart. They can figure it out. But because they don't know the language, they get frustrated. They see a QR code, and I guess most people after the pandemic know what a QR code is now, but some may not still. But whatever new technology you adopt, just think of, people who are not digital natives, they're more digital immigrants. You've got to work with them to learn the language. And once they learn it, they're fine. And I think that's one of the biggest frustration points with the older generation. And I'm just trying to look at this from their perspective is, hey, I'm willing to adopt this stuff. I'm willing to do it. I just don't know the language, with all these emojis. I don't get all the emojis. I don't get all of the short little LOLs and the OMGs. I don't get all of that. So helping them learn the language is going to be critical. And one thing we haven't mentioned that I think is often missed in the church, the average age of a church member is pushing 60. In most denominations, most tribes, right. Whether it's a network or denomination. And so most of your people in most churches are older. So helping them speak the language is very important. I really like that point about digital natives versus digital immigrants. And if you view them biblically as an immigrant, hey, let's help them learn the language. Let's help them understand this stuff. It kind of changes the way
it gives you a framework, doesn't it? Give you some glasses.
It does.
So,
yeah. Go ahead, Boyd.
Yeah. So yesterday, my dad is 82 and he retired for about 5 or 6 years. And then a church that he helped start in the 70s called him. It's a church of about 30, 40 people in our home state. And so he moved back out there and has been pastoring again for the last year and a half. So I called him last night because I wanted to talk to him about this deal. We've talked about technology our whole life, basically, right? So many interesting insights. To your point, what you just said a second ago, his very first point was, don't assume they're against it, because they're not. They just don't know it. It's like that immigrant. And now there are some, we know there are some that are saying, I'm not a computer person, I'm never going to use it. Well, those folks, we just love them. We care about them. And we find other ways around with them, but those are fewer and fewer, right? That group is going away. I remember when I first started using church teams, our older groups like that, when I had somebody who would say that, especially if it was a teacher or director of a class or something like that, what I did is there was always somebody in their class, always, even 20 years ago, who did know how to use technology. And that was part of their ministry for that class, was using the technology to help with the communication with the staff that way. So don't assume they're against it. Don't make assumptions that they know it. You already talked about that, the language. Also, don't go too fast. Take it slow. Just think about somebody learning a language the first time. If you were learning Spanish, I love that picture, Sam. That was a really good illustration of that. And he said, you know what? Write it out. Give me a little checklist, even on some really simple things, so that I'm not intimidated that I have to remember it all. Now, most of us that are more digital native, we don't want that. Let me just look at it and I'll poke around because I understand the gestures. I understand the icons. I know what the little hamburger, the 3 lines in the corner are. I know what the 3 dots mean, right? That's our language. That's the language. We know all of that. They don't. And so click the little gear icon in the top right, and that's your settings area, right down gear icon, that kind of thing. So being patient, loving with that. And then I loved what he said, see this as a ministry opportunity for people in your church. Just like you would have somebody go and in the northern parts this time of the year, shovel sidewalks of snow. Somebody go mow lawn, somebody go help with the trees or shrubbery. See the same way, helping this older generation with technology in the same sort of way. See that as actually a ministry, and then make it known so that those folks could know who to call when they need some help. And you just make it known, here's our person who does that. Now, one thing I've seen doing that, do not have that person be a technology person. Okay. The technology person, let them do the soundboard and the lights and the website and the church management and all of that. That's their world. But they have so many assumptions. Their language is so advanced and different that they're not patient. Find somebody who's a digital native, who loves older people, who understands about gentleness, who understands the right approach, who can take it slow, who's not irritated by, hey, I already told you what that hamburger was on the top right, or that gear icon. How can you not know that? Okay, find that person. And then one of the things I love that he said, he kind of wrapped that part up. He said, you might be surprised how much they really appreciate it. You really might. I love that.
Yeah, that's an excellent thought.
It's like you talking to them and getting their story, and you're loving them just like if you took groceries to somebody or something like that. Isn't that good?
Yeah, it's great. I had a thought. What we should do is we should have a millennial / Gen Z and older gen get together on a Saturday. And all the younger generation people will teach the older generation people how to use a smartphone, and all the older generation people will teach the younger generation people how to drive a manual transmission.
I like it.
and before you get all mad at your older people because they don't know how to use a smartphone, well, throw some of your younger people into a car that's a manual transmission and tell them to drive it. They're going to be just as frustrated. So, again, it's not competency. It's not, they're just stuck in their ways. It's not people being malcontents. It's the same frustration that a younger person has with a manual transmission that an older person has with a smartphone. It's the same principle. It's not even an age thing, because I've taught some of the younger people how to drive manual transmissions. I have a Jeep, and there was a couple of our students that wanted to learn how to drive a manual. I said, well, hop in, let's go do it. And man, they were getting so mad and frustrated until they until they got it. You know what? Yeah. We're talking about closing the technology gap with your older members, but it's not even an age thing. It's just it's a learning curve thing is what it is. And I still love a manual transmission. I hate that they're going away, but that's not what this show is about. So
you're not going to get one of those electric cars, are you, Sam?
Okay. I'll just briefly talk about myself here.
Okay,
I'm all about the latest and greatest technology. I love entrepreneurial work and new things and all of that. But there are some things that I will adopt. I'll be a late adopter, and I'm an early adopter with most stuff. Electric cars, I'm going to be a late adopter, and I don't know whether that's good or bad. I don't know, but I still, if I had my way, give me a big old V8 with a manual transmission, and that's like the perfect setup for me.
I love it because it is technology and it is the same thing. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, all right. So closing the gap can go both ways.
Yes, and that was my point.
Right? That was your point, right?
Yes,
it goes both ways. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily an age thing. Your older people are going to struggle with certain things, but your younger people are going to struggle with certain things too. Yep. All right, so talk to me about texting, because this is something that church teams does so well.
All right, so I was really surprised when I was asking my dad about, what technology do you use frequently, and how do older folks, because he's had ministry with older adults for 30 years, master of it. And he said, you know what? Texting has become a greatest tool, one of our greatest tools. It's simple. It's already on their phone. They don't have to download anything. They don't have to create an account for it. It's already there. He uses it. He uses it every day. People text him their prayer requests. They know how to do it. Hospital patients texting their needs. That happens for him. It ends up being a great tool for follow-up. He even uses that to text younger families because he knows how to text and he can do that easily. He also uses email for more information as a pastor, because it's a little bit longer. You can communicate more information, and he's found it a really great way. He's got some really cool outreach stories in his community, how he reached out to like the school superintendent and different people like that with email. But anyway, but they're going to be more comfortable with that technology, texting and email, than they are going to be with something that's a little more involved, like maybe an app or even social. My dad uses social because he loves seeing the kids' pictures and birthday parties and all of that, right? But for a lot of folks, that is a little tougher. But email and text are foundational things. So the last thing I want to share that he mentioned was, as I get older, arthritis. You talked about your friend with knee challenges. Arthritis is typing. Sometimes the phone is difficult on that. So a couple of thoughts for any of our folks that want to go help. I think that one of the coolest things we could probably help that older generation learn to do is learn how to speech to text on their texting, because it would just help them so much be able to do that and then go back and make any little corrections, but learning that little skill. And for most of the time, it's just there's a microphone right there. And that's literally all you push to type out the text there. So I think that's one of them. And of course, then I can go into the whole church team side of things, which is where you were leading, of why we've invested so much in text to church, because we knew texting's really familiar. So now people can text to give. If older adults have gotten used to not using cash and checks like they used to, and they're using credit cards, well, this gives them a way to give. They can quickly give. They can sign up for stuff. They can, with our texting tool, they can chat and open-ended chat just to the pastor or prayer request or whatever. And you've got access to that within the same phone number. So they can literally do everything on the same phone number. Sign up for the Wednesday night dinner so we know how many people to bring, or here's what I'm bringing to the potluck. All those registration things. Well, they can text potluck and get the little link, and they click the link to do that kind of thing. So it's really simple with texting.
Yeah, and I love how you offer that through church teams. And so I'll just add some real practical stuff here. What church teams offers through texting, I think, is a great way to add to your communication channels. So what you can do, like if you really want to help, maybe you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, our church is just way behind on technology. And that's a lot of our listeners, and that's a lot of churches.
Yeah. Understandable.
It's where it's just where a lot of churches are. When I got to West Bradenton, we didn't even have online giving, and we were a little larger church. It's like, we're not even doing online giving, really. We didn't even have a digital newsletter. We didn't send out an email newsletter. So I know this is a lot of churches. Here's what you can do. So this is what you can tell your older folks. Listen, this is how you start. We're not going to do away with any of our current communication channels. Everything we're doing, we're still going to do. But some of you want to be as in the know as you can. We're going to start a new communication channel with, church teams. You don't have to mention church teams, but with texting, and you can use church teams to do this. So you add to your current communication channels. Now, here's the thing with texting. 95% of your people are going to read those texts, if not all of them. So this is your way. So email newsletters are great, but at best you're going to get a 50% open rate for most cases.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
With texting, you can always make sure that everybody gets the message. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep those communication channels open. That's where older folks don't feel like you're taking something from them, and say, but we're also going to add texting. And a great way to do it is through church teams. And start communicating that way. And you're going to have people that are more in the know. And as they are more in the know and they feel like they're more in the know, they're going to be willing to adopt more and more new things, not just technology, but new programs, new ways of doing things. It's a good way to stretch the mind, if you will, and exercise the mind. I think texting is a good way to start, and church teams is a good partner for that.
And one thing on that, Sam, too, as far as the emails, I know like with our email editor, we built it so it would be like your really expensive ones, email marketing tools, MailChimp, Constant Contact. Those tools and our tool and others, with the email, you can actually save that email onto the cloud and create a link. So then you've got that link that you can copy and put into the text, give, people a short little summary on the text, provide the link, they click on it, and it opens up as a page right on their phone to be able to read the more information, see the blurb about the whole Seder meal and where it is and all the different information like that or whatever it is.
We just did a Seder meal. It's funny that you bring that up. It was very,
well,
yeah, it was
very tomorrow night to 1. So everybody knows when we're taping this now.
Yeah, exactly. Right before Easter. Well, hey, thank you, Boyd Pelley, co-founder of Church Teams, for being on the show. Guys, listen, we bring him on as a co-host for a reason. Like, I love what he does. I love this company. Very honored to have him as a sponsor. The reason we can provide this free content to you is because people like Boyd step up and sponsor it. So go to est.church. It's a landing page. Fill out that form. Get some information about Church Teams. You won't be disappointed by what they have to offer, especially texting. They do a lot of stuff good, but if you want to start somewhere, start with texting. That's a good place to begin. And also, want to thank Church Answers for sponsoring the show. Here's what we're doing. We're giving free stuff away. So you can go get a free book. My dad's new book, Tom Rainer, if you care about his books, well, he sold a lot. So I Am a Christian is this new book. And here's what we're going to do. This is the honor system. And if you cheat, you'll just have to stand before God and you'll just have to deal with it. Go to churchanswers.com/join, churchanswers.com/join. And sign up for a gold membership. You can do monthly, you can do annually, whatever you want to do. And send me an email, sam@churchanswers.com. So churchanswers.com/join. Go sign up for a gold membership, then send me an email, say, hey, I signed up. We'll send you a free book. We'll get your address, all that stuff. We'll send you my dad's latest book, I Am a Christian, if you will go get a gold membership at Church Answers. The reason we're doing this is because we believe in what we're offering through Church Answers, and I think it's a really good book, and we want to give it away to people who subscribe to Church Answers. So thank you all for listening to the show today. Again, Church Teams is the sponsor. Grateful for them and for Boyd Pelley. Give us a rating, a review. All of you who are watching on YouTube, glad that you have hung with us. And if you didn't know that, we are now on YouTube and you can catch us there as well. So if you're listening to this and you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button if you have a thumbs up button through whatever place you're listening to or watching. And we'll see you next time on the next episode.